Some amazing fruits and vegetables we harvested this month, a tour of the California garden, some gardening tips and tricks, all this and a lot more coming up. So let's begin with all the harvests we made this month. Starting with apples. We had our Anna apple tree growing in the ground and it's producing a lot of delicious apples, as you can see here, pretty big sized apples. So we were able to harvest our Anna apples this month, and the Anna apples are a crunchy apple variety. They're very delicious as well. And the tree has grown to quite a decent size, and I hope that it produces more foliage in the upcoming years. Here's a look at our harvest, beautiful looking apples. We also had our N. Shemmer apple tree, and this also produces a lot of apples, as you can see here. They are a little softer than the Anna apple. However, they are a very good variety as well to grow in Southern California. Here you can see we harvested a lot of apples from our apple tree. Asparagus beans. All our asparagus bean plants were growing in the raised bed, and you can see we have a lot of plants growing. Now, as I mentioned in the last month's video, this was supposed to be a bush type asparagus bean. However, it is actually a vining type, and it's all across the raised bed. You can see that it's grown on the trellis towards the ivy gourd plants. But we have a lot of beans here. We're harvesting a lot of beans from this plant. You can look at our harvest here. These are very crunchy and delicious beans. And we were back in just a few days to harvest a few more. The asparagus beans grow pretty quickly in the growing season, which is summer. And it produces a lot of beans, as you can see here. And here is another harvest. As you can see, beautiful looking beans. Bottle gourds. We harvested a lot of bottle gourds from our garden. Here you can see the one that we're harvesting is actually on the mulberry tree, and it has used that tree as a support. And we are harvesting one of these bottle gourds, big bottle gourd being harvested. It's a pretty decent sized bottle gourd as well. And this is another bottle gourd that we're harvesting. As you can see, this is a monster sized bottle gourd, quite big in size. It was really difficult to hold it with one hand for this video or this picture. But all in all, this was a great month for growing and harvesting bottle gourds. Bush beans. We were growing our bush beans in our green stalk planter. This is the green stalk classic planter. So we planted 42 plus beans in this green stalk planter. And you can see that we sowed 2 seeds in every pocket of this green stalk planter. And it produces quite a lot of beans, as you can see here. So this is one of the benefits of the green stalk garden planter, is that you can grow a lot of vegetables, a lot of plants in a small space. And if you notice carefully, you might have seen the covers for our green stalk planter. This is because we now have a self-watering system for our green stalk planters. And that will be a new video coming up very soon, where I'll show you how you can set up an automated watering system for your green stalk planter. But you can see here we harvested a lot of beans. Just look at our harvest here, gorgeous looking bush beans. And there are still a lot of beans on the plant, so we will continue to harvest them during this month. Cucumbers. These are our bush cucumbers growing in the raised bed, and this is what we started our month with, harvesting these bush type cucumbers. And as you can see, they grew to a pretty decent size. This is our first harvest here, beautiful looking cucumbers. And here are some more. And you can notice that as the month goes by, the plant has started slowing down a little bit. It's still producing cucumbers, but look at the leaves. They've started becoming yellow. They have started becoming brown. And some of the leaves are getting infected with mildew. And this is very common with cucumber plants. They grow very well for about 4 months or so, and then they'll slow down. But you can see how many cucumbers we are harvesting here from this plant. And we used our tomato trellis for supporting this plant. But you can see there are so many side shoots that it was still difficult to contain. And every few days we were harvesting cucumbers from this plant. Towards the end of the season, some of the cucumbers were larger, but some of them were very small as well, as you can see here. All in all, a great season for growing cucumbers. Moving on to pigeon peas, also called tuvar or gandul in Spanish. So our pigeon pea plant was growing in the ground, and it is yielding pigeon peas, as you can see here. These are the dried pigeon peas. So we harvested these pigeon peas. These are an excellent source of protein, fiber, and nutrients, something that I will explain in detail in an upcoming video. Eggplants. These are the Indian eggplants, the Indian small eggplants. You can just stuff these eggplants, cook them, and eat them. They taste amazing. And if harvested at this stage, these are the best tasting eggplants. You can see that the plant is loaded with eggplants. There are a lot of eggplants on this plant. And here is a harvest. You can see beautiful looking Indian eggplants. And we also had the fairy tale eggplant. This is an Italian type eggplant. And we got two plants, out of which one looked like a fairy tale eggplant. And the other one actually looked like a long purple eggplant for some reason when it started producing the eggplants. And here is the fairy tale eggplant. And now we are harvesting the long purple eggplant. The purple long eggplant is similar to the fairy tale eggplant. It's just a little darker purple in color. But all in all, it's a great tasting eggplant. We cooked all of these eggplants together. They were amazing. And summer is a great time to grow eggplants, harvest eggplants. You can see how beautiful these eggplants are. Just look at our harvest here. We also had our Black Beauty eggplant growing in a container. Now the best thing about the Black Beauty eggplant is that it's a pretty big eggplant. So even if you have just one eggplant harvested, you can use a lot of that in your cooking. And we also had eggplants growing in our greenstock planter. This is the greenstock classic planter. And these are the purple long eggplants. Beautiful looking eggplants, as you can see. And we were back in just a few days to harvest some more small Indian eggplants from our raised bed. And all of these look amazing, as you can see here. Hyacinth beans. All our hyacinth beans this year were growing in containers. And as you can see, this has become a big plant. Lots of hyacinth beans on the plant. And we are harvesting all these hyacinth beans. We tried a new trellis method for the hyacinth beans this year. So in addition to the container trellis that we usually have, we also added a top part and zip tied it to the trellis. And it was okay. It wasn't that productive, but still a little better than not having it on the top. And as you can see here, there are a lot of clusters of these hyacinth beans growing. And this is actually the peak season for hyacinth beans. Hyacinth beans have peak production in summer all the way through fall. They produce a lot of beans during this time. And you can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking hyacinth beans. Ivy gourd. This is the ivy gourd that was growing in the ground. This is the long type Indian ivy gourd, which we have been growing for the last 2 years now. It's been pretty productive. It has survived the winters and it has been growing very well. You can see how thick the stems have become now. And this does produce a lot of ivy gourds. They are slightly more elongated than the smaller ivy gourd that you see here. These are from the raised bed. We have a few ivy gourd plants on the raised bed, producing a lot of ivy gourds this month. Now this wasn't a great year for ivy gourds. We had a late start to the summer season, but I think they have caught up now. They are producing a lot of ivy gourds now during August. And you can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking ivy gourd. And we were back in just a few days to harvest more ivy gourds. This one again is from the plant in the ground. As you can see, the trellis is quite useful here to make sure that you can actually see the ivy gourds growing and harvest them. It's very hard to spot them, but when you eventually spot them, you'll see that after harvesting all the ivy gourds from the plant, you get a very decent harvest of ivy gourds. And here is one of our harvests, beautiful looking ivy gourds. This is a small ivy gourd. And we also had another small ivy gourd plant growing in a container. And this has been growing very well. We're beginning to harvest ivy gourd from this plant as well now. It did produce a lot of ivy gourds, as you can see here. Now it's important to have some kind of a trellis system or trellising for your ivy gourds, because the more they spread out, the more ivy gourds they will produce. And this plant was loaded with ivy gourds just all around. You can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking ivy gourds. Onions. We started harvesting our shallots that we planted in the raised bed. You can see that they've matured now, the tops are dying off. So it's time to harvest them and then dry them so that they can be cured. And we planted one bulb each for these shallots. and they have now bunched out into several bulbs, as you can see here. So shallots are a bunching type onion. You plant one set or one onion and it will bunch out and produce more onions. And you can see from a small space, these are a lot of shallots that we harvested. And what we'll do now is just remove the top part of the shallots after drying. These have been drying for a few days, and cut off the roots a little bit. And what we will do is now separate the shallots out so that they can be used. And here are our shallots, beautiful looking shallots, as you can see, very nice, very delicious, very pungent as well. Moving on to peppers, and we harvested a lot of pepper varieties this month. These are the bell peppers, beginning with the harvest from the ground. This pepper plant was overwintered and it has still been growing well, producing a lot of peppers, as you can see. And here are the peppers, bell peppers, green bell peppers, more green bell peppers from our raised beds as well. This is the California Wonder bell pepper, one of the most popular bell pepper varieties to grow, just because it's so easy to grow here and around the world. And we also had peppers growing in our green stalk planter. This is the green stalk classic planter. We planted about a dozen pepper plants here, as you can see, and they've all produced really nice looking peppers. And you can see that the peppers are produced almost at every tier, which means that the way this watering system works, it delivers water and nutrients to the right plants in the right tiers equally, which is pretty amazing. The nutrients don't get washed out. You can see these are beautiful looking peppers. And once again, these are the green bell pepper as well as the California Wonder bell pepper. All very gorgeous looking peppers. And here are some more from the bottom tiers. As you can see, the peppers are quite big in size and they look amazing. And just look at our pepper harvest here. We harvested a lot of bell peppers from all these bell pepper plants. And we are now harvesting the cayenne peppers or the hot chili peppers. We planted a lot of different varieties of cayenne pepper, as I mentioned earlier. These are the peppers that have ripened, that have turned red. As you can see, beautiful looking peppers. And we had a lot of peppers growing on these plants, and a lot of them had started turning red. So we do use red chilies as a whole in a lot of dishes. And this is what we plan to do with these peppers, these chili peppers, is to harvest them first and dry them so that they can be used as whole chilies. And we also had the Santaka chili peppers. Once again, a lot of red chilies there that we could dry and use. You can also dry these red chilies and make chili powder. I had posted a video on doing that earlier. If you haven't looked at that video, please do check it out. But just look at these red peppers here, beautiful looking peppers. And in just a few days, we sun dried them and made whole chilies that we could use. And now let's harvest the green chilies. Now the green chilies have a different purpose. They are used for cooking, they're used fresh. And we harvested a lot of these green chilies from our plant. As you can see, the plant has produced a lot of chilies. And just look at our green chili harvest here, beautiful looking chilies, different types of cayenne peppers. And finally, it was time to harvest the giant Marconi peppers. Now we've harvested a lot of these giant Marconi peppers last month as well. You can see how big and nice these peppers are. And this plant produces a lot of peppers. As you can see, the plant has already produced a lot of peppers last month and is still producing peppers now. And we will continue to harvest these peppers in the next month as well. But all in all, this has been a very prolific plant, and you can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking giant Marconi peppers. And these are very mild peppers but very delicious. And we were back in just a few days to harvest more bell peppers from our green stalk planter. And you can see these nice big bell peppers that we harvested. And I was really surprised at how many bell peppers these plants produced. It was quite amazing to see that. But you can see these are pretty good looking bell peppers. And you can also harvest bell peppers from a 5-gallon container like you see here. 5-gallon containers are good enough to grow and harvest peppers. There are also some more peppers here that you can see that we'll harvest later. And here is the harvest, beautiful looking bell peppers. Snake gourds. We were growing snake gourds on our raised bed, on the trellis between the raised beds. And you can see we have different varieties of snake gourds. They're all looking really nice. And snake gourds are an acquired taste. You need to eat snake gourd before you start growing it in your garden. Some people really love snake gourds, some don't. So make sure that you first try out eating snake gourds before growing them in your home garden. But for those of you who have eaten snake gourds, this is an amazing vegetable, quite good for your health. And you can see that the fruits actually look like snakes, hence the name snake gourd. Tomatoes. We started harvesting our tomatoes from the raised bed. As you can see, we have big clusters of tomatoes, and these are single stem tomatoes. And the seeds for this tomato plant were actually saved from a store bought tomato. We once bought a store bought tomato that we really liked, and then we saved the seeds and then we planted them, and they have become these amazing tomatoes. And I think I'm going to save seeds for next year as well, just because these tomatoes are so amazing. They are very delicious. The plant is very prolific, and we are very pleased with the results of this plant. And these are the big Indian tomatoes. Again, a very nice variety to grow. It produces really big tomatoes. Here are a couple more tomatoes, the big Indian tomatoes. They look pretty good. They're very nice. They are a slicing type tomato. And these are the tomatoes that grew from our compost. This looks like a beefsteak style tomato. And it looks pretty good actually. For volunteer plants, it did pretty well. And here are some more tomatoes that we're harvesting from these volunteer plants. And we are back on our raised bed harvesting more tomatoes from our store-bought tomato plant seeds. And this looks like a Roma type tomato, I'm not really sure. But it does produce a lot of tomatoes. It produces clusters of tomatoes. And they're also very good tasting tomatoes. And these were grown as single stem tomatoes. And I think it's best to grow indeterminate tomatoes as single stem tomatoes. They produce a lot more tomatoes with this method. And you can see a harvest here. These are absolutely gorgeous looking tomatoes. And here is another harvest in just a few days. More tomatoes growing on this plant on the raised bed. And we just had 2 plants, and you can see how many tomatoes just these 2 plants produced. And these are the tomatoes on the top of the tomato plant. And we had a 7-foot stake right next to the plant. And the plant has grown even further than that. You can look at the harvest here. Beautiful looking tomatoes. And here we are on the final leg of the harvest for this season for this tomato plant. And these are just gorgeous looking tomatoes, as you can see here. Ridge gourd. One of our other favorite vegetables to grow is ridge gourd. This is a very tender ridge gourd that we are harvesting here, as you can see. And here is one more. The ridge gourd plant wasn't that prolific this year just because it was planted right next to the bottle gourd plant. But you can look at our harvest here. Beautiful looking ridge gourds, and we hope to get a few more from this plant this season. And now let's take a tour of the garden, starting with the raised beds. In the first raised beds, you saw us harvest a lot of peppers from this raised bed. You can see there are plenty of peppers still on the plants, some of them green, some of them red. There are some bell peppers growing as well. It's been a hot month here. The peppers are doing well. There are these bottle gourd plants between the raised beds, and they have been yielding a lot of bottle gourds. You can see some more bottle gourds here. I'm planning to keep this one for seed. And then the ridge gourd. You can see one more ridge gourd here. Beautiful looking ridge gourd. And coming on to the second raised bed, we have our Indian eggplants, the small Indian eggplants. Once again, quite prolific this season. We have our bell peppers. You can see the California Wonder bell peppers. The tomato plants, they have grown quite tall, quite big. Still yielding tomatoes, as you can see here. And right next to that, in the shade of the tomato plants, we have the cilantro. The cilantro plants are doing okay. It's too hot for them. And then we have our Thai green eggplants that are doing okay. On the next raised bed, this is the raised bed that we have been struggling with a little bit. Some eggplants and peppers. The peppers are still growing okay, but not as well as I would like them to grow. You can see some more Thai green eggplants here, some purple bell peppers on the back. And then on the corner, we have our onion chives. These are doing extremely well now, despite the hotter weather. And then we have our black cobra pepper. We planted a few black cobra peppers in our garden. This one is a Japanese cucumber. You can see that the cucumbers are now being produced. And on the other side, we have our snake gourd plants. The snake gourds are doing good too. You can see a lot of snake gourds still being produced by the plant. And we just planted some corn. This is the yellow sweet corn. Looking pretty good. Hopefully it'll grow up pretty quickly. We also planted some cilantro. You can see some cilantro plants here. We eat a lot of cilantro, so we need to make sure we plant plenty of them. We have some okras, the Nombo giant okra, followed by our taro root plant. You can see the leaves have turned a little bit yellow. We have a lot of heat. It's been very hot this month. And this is the fairy tale eggplant, doing pretty good as you can see. And on the other side, we have our volunteer tomato plant that just grew from the compost, plus a lot of asparagus beans. You can see so many asparagus beans here. They're all ready for harvest. We will be harvesting them soon. And then we also have some more okras here. We planted some more okras. And looks like the aphids got to them, so they're not doing that well. We have our ash gourds. You can see 2 ash gourd plants here doing quite well. And then on the back, we have our ivy gourd plants, which are doing okay. And that completes the tour of our raised bed garden. Let's now move on to the containers on one side. We have our 4-in-1 apple tree with a lot of vinca flowers below it. You can see they look beautiful. We have our firecracker plant that's doing good. It loves the warmer weather. Our celebration tomato plant, it's doing okay. I'm not too happy with how it's doing now, but it's still producing tomatoes. We have some hot peppers here, followed by the purple long eggplant. You can see a lot of eggplants here ready for harvest now. And then we have our Thai pepper. These are the Thai dragon peppers. We have our Santaka chili plant. This has been overwintered from last year. Followed by more cayenne peppers. And our holy basil plant. And finally, what you can't see behind that is another black cobra plant, which is doing well. And our fig tree is loaded with figs, as you can see. Lots of figs on this tree. And on the containers on the other side, first we have our longevity spinach plant. That's looking really good now. Followed by our hyacinth bean plant. We harvested a lot of hyacinth beans from this plant this month. And you can see some more flowers still being produced. Followed by 2 of our pepper plants. This is the bell pepper plant as well as the cayenne pepper plant. Lots of cayenne peppers as well as bell peppers still growing. We then have our big Indian tomato plant. You can see some more tomatoes still being produced. And this actually had our cucumbers, this container, but now only the ash gourd plants have survived and they have taken over the trellis. On the other side, we have another variety of Indian eggplant that's looking good. We have our snake gourd plants that are almost done for the season now, followed by our big Indian tomatoes, 2 of them in this container. And then we have our Flora Dale tomato that's producing tomatoes okay. Not a very prolific plant, but okay. Not something I would recommend. And then we have our Egyptian onion plants. We harvested a lot of Egyptian onions from this plant, and the plant is producing new shoots now. Our white Carolina strawberries are doing okay. You can see some damage on the leaf of the plant, but no strawberries yet. Our turmeric plant is doing quite well. You can see flowers, beautiful flowers on this plant. And then we have black beauty eggplant that's doing very well. We harvested a few eggplants this month. And in the next container, we had our puneri cucumbers. We removed them, so this spot is empty now. We have our potato plants. The vines have died down quite a lot, and we will be harvesting our potatoes very soon. Followed by our ivy gourd plant in the container. That's looking good. And then we have our mint plant. The mint plant has grown all over the place. It needs a trim soon. And then we have our 2 volunteer tomato plants. It's producing tomatoes now. And then we just planted some pole beans. We have our Roma tomatoes. You can see not very healthy looking plant. A lot of caterpillars on it, but the tomatoes are being produced, so we are okay. And this is our cauliflower plant, just to give you an example of what happens when you plant cauliflowers in summers. They will be infested with caterpillars, and I don't spray my plants. So you need to make sure that you plant your plants in the right season. We have potato onions in the next container, followed by some okra that we just planted. And we have our sweet potato vines in the same plant as this Nombo giant okra, which has become a large plant now. We then have our taro plant. So you can see it's become quite big. And finally, we have our giant Marconi peppers. As you can see, the giant Marconi peppers are still yielding peppers, and it's looking pretty good. And that completes a tour of our container garden. And now let's look at some things for you to do in your garden this month. Mulching may be the single most important improvement you can make to your garden this year. We look at what is mulching, why to add mulch to your garden, the benefits of adding mulch, and we look at a detailed demonstration on how to mulch with straw or hay with some results. So what is mulch? Well, anything that you use to cover up your soil is mulch. Mulch can be organic, which means it consists of something that was living at some point of time, like straw, wood, bark, etc. They decompose slowly to add nutrients to the soil. Inorganic mulch includes stones, pebbles, rubber, and other dead material which are used for aesthetic purposes, mostly in parks and recreational areas, but can also be used at home for some scenarios. Let's look at the benefits of adding mulch. One of the most important reasons for mulching is to prevent water loss from evaporation during summers and to keep the soil cool, and also during winters to keep your soil around your plants warm. The next benefit of mulching, with organic matter that is, it will eventually break down into essential nutrients that are needed by plants. Mulching around the base of a tree also prevents physical damage to the tree from moving equipment like grass trimmers or lawn mowers, and also provides a great look to your tree. Now let's look at the different options we have for mulching. Now we won't be discussing too much about inorganic sources for mulching, but inorganic sources for mulch are still a good choice when you want to add some beauty to your garden while keeping pests and insects at bay. White pebbles like the ones you see here provide an excellent barrier for conserving water while giving your garden a great look and make it aesthetically pleasing. You can also use other sources like rocks or rubber mulch, and there are a lot of other options also available for inorganic mulch sources. Wood chips. One of my least preferred ways of mulching, but still works quite well. Wood chips, which are a form of organic mulch, when put around plants and trees, give an excellent look to your garden while providing all the benefits of mulching. Wood chips can be bought at most garden centers. Specialty mulch like pine bark are not only great looking, but also provide excellent nutrition benefits to your soil. We have used wood chips around most of our fruit trees, and they seem to be doing a good job giving a great appearance to the containers while preserving water as well. Dried leaves and plant remains. One of the easiest options to mulch your garden are dried leaves. If you have any sort of plants growing in your garden, chances are they will drop their dry leaves. Collect all these leaves, which are an excellent source of nutrition, and apply it directly around your plants. We have grown a lot of vegetable plants this way and they seem to do a good job. Now here's a tip. You can also break down these leaves into smaller pieces using a lawnmower or a trimmer. Broken down leaves like this will break down much faster than whole leaves. Some of these leaves may even contain beneficial fungi and bacteria, which is excellent for your soil. The leaves and plant clippings will eventually break down into organic matter and feed your plants. This is one of the easiest options to mulch your garden. Compost. One of the best mulches you can use for your garden is compost. You can make compost easily at home, or you can buy bagged compost at your garden center. Compost adds a lot of beneficial nutrients into your soil while providing an effective barrier for better moisture control. Add in worm castings to your compost for even better results. Straw or hay. One of the most versatile and cheap options, straw or hay like this easy straw bale can be purchased at your local tractor supply or farm supply store. It's extremely cheap and one bag goes a long way. We will show you some plants that have been mulched with straw and the results after a few days. One of the best uses for straw mulch, like the one you see here, includes a tacking agent, which basically sticks to the soil and prevents it from being flown away during high winds. This is critical for germinating seeds like carrots, as an example. We have used straw as a mulch, where we direct sowed seeds like carrots, and they have done very well. Similarly, in winters, mulch protects seedlings like garlic when it's extremely cold, or even during times of snow and ice. So all in all, there are plenty of options to mulch your garden, and as a to-do for this year, you should start looking into mulching your garden. And there we have it. If you liked this video, do give us a big thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments box below. We'll see you again soon. Happy gardening.